Hello and welcome. My name is Meepless, they, he, she, and today's pick is Under the Banner of King Death by David Lester and Marcus Rediker with Paul M. Buhle, published by Beacon Press in 2023. The text is an adaptation from Villains of All Nations, Atlantic Pirates in the Golden Age by Marcus Rediker, copyright 2004. Content notes for executions, the slave trade, whipping, guns, and sex. Keywords that came to mind reading this volume were queer, anarchic, racial diversity, retirement, consensus, and illegitimate. The publisher's summary is, quote, a tale of mutiny, bloody battle, and social revolution. Under the Banner of King Death novelizes for the first time the real pirates, an itinerant community of outsiders behind our legends. This graphic novel breaks new ground in our understanding of piracy and pirate culture, giving us more reasons to love the rebellious and stout-hearted marauders of the high seas. Set at the pinnacle of the golden age of Atlantic piracy, this novel follows three unlikely companions who are sold into servitude on a merchant ship and unwittingly thrust into a voyage of rebellion. They are John Gwin, an African-American fugitive from bondage in South Carolina, Ruben Dekker, a common seaman from Amsterdam, and Mark/Mary Reed, an American woman who defies stereotypes by dressing as a man. Mutiny ensues against the tyrannical Captain Skinner, who is thrown overboard, to make way for democracy aboard the Night Rambler. The crew's new order provides radical social benefits, also based on real, documented practices of contemporary pirate ships, democratic decision-making, a social security net, health and disability insurance, and equal distribution of spoils taken from prize ships. It's not long before the London elites enlist a war-hungry captain to take down the Night Rambler and start a war of high society versus high seas pirates. Adapted from the scholarship and research of historian Marcus Rediker, Under the Banner of King Death will inspire readers with its tale of those on the bottom fighting back and achieving, against all odds, a democratic and egalitarian social order, if only for a short time. End quote. A collaborator on some titles I've discussed previously, including 1991, A Graphic History of the Winnipeg General Strike, and Direct Action Gets the Goods, A Graphic History of Strike in Canada. You can check out my previous bio of David Lester in the latter review. Not to mention that I've also picked up Profit Against Slavery, Benjamin Lay, and am reading it as we speak, which was another collab between Lester and Rediker. Scrolling through Marcus Rediker's website, he's apparently a professor of Atlantic history at the University of Pittsburgh, who self-describes as historian, writer, teacher, and activist. He also apparently made the jump from Twitter to Blue Skies last month. Did that myself recently and would highly recommend. And finally, I have read a number of comics edited by Paul M. Buhle. For better or worse, I profiled him in my review of the apparent yawn fest that was Eugene V. Debs, a graphic biography. But I would probably recommend picking up A Ballad of an American, a graphic biography of Paul Robeson by Sharon Udall instead, if you are looking for more interesting examples of his other work. Overall, I really appreciated how expressive and kinetic the pages were. A really engrossing read that communicates a lot of history through very compelling storytelling. A few lines that really stood out to me were, quote, the ravaged body of the pirate is a key to understanding the real history of those who sailed under the banner of King Death, the infamous Black Flag, the pirate's Jolly Roger. Trapped in a deadly machine called the Deep Sea Sailing Ship, sailors who turned pirate fought a furious battle for survival, routinely maimed in the course of their work, bilked of their wages, fed rotten provisions, and beaten around the deck by captains with tyrannical powers. These seafaring men and a few women built a radically different life on a pirate ship. The alternative social order of the pirate ship was all the more impressive because it had been created by the so-called villains of all nations, workers of many races and ethnicities, who, according to conventional wisdom in their own day and in ours, were not supposed to cooperate. Any given pirate ship might have English, Irish, Greek, Dutch, French, or Native American crew members. or Native American crew members. African and African American seamen played an especially prominent role as they freely and subversively sailed Caribbean and North American waters near the coastal slave plantations from which many of them had escaped." End quote. I appreciated how Rediker is so effortlessly able to contextualize pirates in such a radically different way than we often see them, not only in terms of class, but also in terms of other marginalized identities. This isn't to say everything was sunshine and roses. That's never how people living in community goes. But in a world, both then and now, that only sees violence as legitimate when carried out by the state, or at the very least against someone more marginalized than you, pirates are everything that capitalist empires don't want us to learn from. Overall, my only real complaint is that I wanted more. But such is life, I suppose. Fitting with the entire philosophical exercise of the thing, the narrative of the graphic novel doesn't follow any great man of history narratives. Big names are highlighted alongside what might be seen as a more average experience. We see representation of many different kinds of relationships, some different kinds of gender presentation, and how consensus decision-making works. We also see the pirates having fun, playing music, eating, drinking, and dancing. Turning our focus on the artwork, it is of a style that can be a bit hit or miss for some. I appreciate how dynamic, expressive, and varied it was, balancing out the practical choice of going with a grayscale color scheme. The use of line was probably my favorite. We also get a brief look into Lester's process in the afterword by Paul Buhle. Quote, Lester says that he sought to bring the reader back in time, offering his own version of artwork that has more in common with the black and white etchings of Hogarth than with the colorwork of the art of the EC Piracy series, watercolor, brushes, pencils, and pen. In some cases, Lester takes inspiration from the famous pirate films by cutting up drawings and reassembling them to create a kind of movement in slow motion, giving the reader time to linger on the page. In previous graphic novels, Lester created scale models or clay structures when penciling drawings for the script. For this book, he built a scale model of an 18th century galleon so as to draw the ship from any angle. Before each day of drawing, he would study the model galleon's progress to get a sense of how it must have been spatially to have lived in that wooden world. End quote. A tiny apology for the extended quotes, but it was pretty interesting, so here we are. Looking at the different political aspects I want to highlight in every one of my reviews, I feel like we have already touched on almost all of them, with the exception of place. We certainly had a fairly strong sense of being at sea in general, but Lester, as illustrated by that quote, also spent a decent amount of effort building out the specifics of the Night Rambler. Wrapping things up, while it will probably be off-putting to some, I appreciated the mix of facts, speculation in the form of fictional storytelling, and political analysis that make up this slim, easy-to-read volume. I was impressed with just how much I got to chew on and would generally recommend. 5 stars, because I felt like I learned a lot and I was impressed with the format. Bye, y'all. Keep reading, and remember, all colonial settler states are a lie. And literally graphic is created on land that should be given back to the traditional landholders, which in this case is, to my knowledge, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, an Anishinaabe people, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Huron-Wendat Nation.